hours of Fox News. It's the Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Megyn Kelly. This is a Kelly File special. What is ailing Obamacare? For more than 4 months, we have tracked the unfolding series of setbacks and meltdowns in the rollout of one of the biggest federal initiatives since the launch of Medicare and Medicaid. Healthcare touches every man, woman, and child in this country. And as a result, this massive overhaul was originally sold to the country with these basic promises.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor or health care provider, you can keep them. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period. If you like your health care plan, you can keep that too. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. If you like your current insurance, you keep that insurance, period. End of story. Now, the naysayers and the cynics still doubt that we can do this. No one will take it away, no matter what.
But now, of course, we have learned that none of these has held true. More than 6 million people were kicked off of the plans they liked before the White House ordered insurance companies to just ignore that part of the law. New enrollees are finding they cannot get the doctors they want. And the president's promise is now known as the 2013 political lie of the year. The problem started last October with a website that did not work. Just 6 people were able to sign up on day one. And for weeks, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius had to admit they never completely tested the system and couldn't tell Congress how many people had signed up or how many had paid into the enrollment process. When they could report the numbers, they were desperately behind their goals. And as recently as last week, the president himself was quoting enrollment figures that have been discredited by major media outlets and fact checkers. There are website security problems, problems with payments, problems with fixing the problems, and reports of big premium increases and high deductibles for those who are able to sign up. Then just this week, a Congressional Budget Office report found that when all is said and done, Obamacare will wind up providing insurance for roughly 16 million Americans while leaving another 31 million uninsured. So for all the turmoil, change, and expense, the best case result of this bill, now law, is that 2/3 of America's uninsured will still have no health insurance. So we decided to investigate. Where does this go? What happens next? What can be fixed and what cannot? We begin tonight with Michael Cannon, the Cato Institute's Director of Health Policy Studies. Mike, good to see you again. I mean, that number, that only 16 million people, I should say, are going to be insured, and 31 million will be left uninsured. And a large portion of the 16 million who will be insured thanks to this law already had insurance before Obamacare. They just shuffled the deck chairs on it. Your take?
All of Obamacare's numbers are headed in the wrong direction here. The projections for how many people would be insured this year in the exchanges and through the Medicaid expansion have gone down by 20, 25, 38%. The percentage of people who are going to be uninsured this year is 50% higher than what the CBO projected back in 2009. The law's popularity is going down. The law has lost the uninsured. The uninsured disapprove of this law. This is the target population that this law is supposed to help.
That's great. How do the uninsured not like Obamacare?
Well, look at what has happened. I mean, the president promised people could keep their health plans. The president promised premiums would go down. The president promised you'd be able to keep your doctor. The president promised all sorts of things about this law. We'll have a website up and running so you can buy health insurance on October 1st with subsidies. All of these things have been shown to be false. The president has broken all of these promises, and so the uninsured are probably looking at this law thinking, well, the government's not going to keep the promises that it's making to me. It's telling me I have to buy this health insurance or else I'll pay a fine. If they're forcing me to buy it, it can't be such great health insurance.
And now they're getting to the point where
affordable.
The fine will be relevant, will become relevant to them because they are going to have to sign, the uninsured are going to have to pay the fine if they don't wind up signing up. Let me ask you this. At its core, the success of this law will come down to whether they get the right mix of people signing up on the healthcare.gov exchange and the state exchanges. And thus far, we've been told they're not getting it. They're not getting the right percentage of young, healthy people. Originally, they said, well, we need about 40% or so of the signups to be these young, healthy people, and then they didn't get anywhere near that. They're down in the low 20s, and they said, oh, forget that 40% number. That was irrelevant. Why aren't the young, healthy people wanting it when everyone around them is saying, you should want it?
Well, for one thing, there's all the broken promises and the higher premiums. There's the fact that this law has become something of a joke. They don't want to spend a lot of time on the website trying to buy an unattractive plan. But I think the most important thing about the numbers that we've seen so far is we've only seen the share of old versus young. That's actually not as important as the mix of healthy versus less healthy. You need to have a lot within every age stratum. You need to have a lot of healthy people offsetting the cost of covering the sick people in that age range. Mm-hmm. We don't know what the health profile is of the people that are signing up. We just know that they're older than expected. They're probably also going to be sicker than expected. Mm-hmm. And one more thing about how the young and or healthy are going to behave under this law. When they realize that Obamacare has made it easier than ever, safer than ever not to buy health insurance, they're going to have a hard time keeping young and healthy people in these plans because they'll realize, you know what, I can stop paying my premiums. I'll still have coverage for a few months because Obamacare requires that. And I can make it until if I can make it until next year, if I get sick and I can make it until next year, I'll just buy insurance during the open enrollment period.
Right,
and they can't turn me away.
I can't be turned away because of the prior conditions. Michael, good to see you.
Thanks.
Well, all of the issues with enrollments, plans, premiums, and deductibles sound like a wonky exercise in Insurance 101, but this stuff is having a very real impact in the lives of a lot of workers. The CEO of America Online went on TV and explained how Obamacare was going to increase its insurance costs by $7 million a year. Listen.
In the CEO chair, let me give you an example of the decisions we have to make as a company. Obamacare is an additional $7.1 million expense for us as a company. So we have to decide whether or not to pass that expense to employees or whether to cut other benefits.
And that's just one big firm. Small businesses are facing even more dramatic challenges. David Allen runs a medical billing firm in Boulder, Colorado. When he went to move his employees onto a state exchange plan, he was looking at either a 52% hike in their premiums or telling the staff they faced a big jump in their possible out-of-pocket costs. David joins us now with the rest of his story. David, thank you for being here. And so you have a business that has under 50 employees, so it's not required to get insurance for its employees. Why did you decide to look into this?
Well, we've provided health insurance to our employees for many years. Long before the government said that they expected us to do this, we've taken this burden upon ourselves because, quite frankly, we can, and we feel that it's the right thing to do. So, regardless of the number of employees that we have, this is a commitment that we've made to our employees. The problem is that it's getting harder and harder to keep that commitment because of the excessive increase in the premiums as a direct result of the Affordable Care Act.
So you're employing these 34 people or so. You decide to give them health care coverage because you're a kind boss who believes in insuring your people. And sort of just sitting there minding your own business, your premiums get jacked up as a result of the law. By how much?
52.3% to be exact.
And so what as a businessman, how do you evaluate that?
Well, you can't. I mean, obviously a 52.3% increase is unmanageable. I mean, this is my second highest expense item after personnel. So I can't pass it along to my clients. I can't absorb it. It's really unmanageable. So, we did the only thing that we could do under the circumstances. We renewed early. The stipulations under the Affordable Care Act are for plans under 2014 and forward. So we renewed 2 months early.
You got sort of a 1-year grace period, but this problem is
we kicked the can down the road.
You're coming up on this problem. So what will you eventually decide to do? You're going to raise the premiums, or are you going to fire people, or what are you going to do?
Well, the jury's still out on that. I mean, we're certainly hopeful that someone in Washington will develop some common sense and come back with some alternatives that enable us to do what we need and want to be able to do for our employees. Short of them coming back and offering any concessions, such as allowing us to keep the health insurance plan that we had and liked and would have preferred to have kept, short of that, we'll either end up having to pass along a substantial portion of the increase to our employees, or we'll have to increase the deductibles or make some other substantive change because, again, I simply can't absorb that increase, and I don't have the luxury of passing it along to my clients. So, one way or the other, my employees will inevitably end up participating at a higher level financially going forward if we don't get some kind of relief from the federal government.
We have heard that story time and time again. David, all the best to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We are also hearing similar stories and similar challenges for people who buy insurance directly from the exchanges as opposed to through their employer. Senator Tom Coburn got national attention after he signed up for Obamacare through the federal exchange and learned that the oncologist who had been treating his cancer was not part of his new plan. And in California, the LA Times recently did a feature story on a woman who got insurance through the covered California State Exchange after previously being denied for a pre-existing condition. Good news. Except when she went to see a specialist for the numbness in her arm, the doctor would not take the covered California plan. Neither would the next one, or the next one, or the one after that. Of course, if she were watching the Kelly File back in November, she would have seen this prediction from the head of the large doctors group based in California. So what will happen then for those Californians who find themselves with no choice but to join a program under the exchange?
Well, we're dealing with what's called narrow networking, and it's coming about because the physician's making a decision whether or not to participate, and by plans only contracting with a smaller number of doctors for some of the exchange products. If you put enough people in those plans and you don't have enough doctors participating, you end up with a bottleneck, which means you're not doing what this was all about, improving access to care.
Trace Gallagher joins us with more now from LA. Trace.
And Megan, so the mantra might be now, if you thought you kept your doctor, you might want to double check. And we've got all the documentation to show you exactly why this is happening. You've got thousands of doctors who are leaving the healthcare exchanges. They are opting out because the reimbursement rates are simply too low. For example, we know an orthopedic specialist who performed a 3.5-hour surgery and was reimbursed just a few $100s, not even enough to cover costs. So he opted out. But here's the reason so many doctors are still listed as being in certain networks. In early 2012, a doctor who wants to remain anonymous was sent a contract from Blue Shield saying, quoting here, your participation in this network under development at Blue Shield will require you to sign the new independent physician and provider agreement. Well, the doctor didn't sign the agreement because he didn't want to be in the network. In October of 2012, Blue Shield sends another letter. This one says, quoting, your completion of the agreement is critical to accessing these new business opportunities, yet we have not yet received your signed agreement. Well, because they didn't receive it, because the doctor doesn't want to be in that network. 3 weeks later, he gets a third letter. This one says, quote, we are writing to inform you that we plan to include your practice in our individual exchange network. So now he's in, even though he didn't sign up, and the doctor can't get out. He actually had to pay a lawyer several $1,000s to get him off the list. And Dr. Mark Siegel says this is part and parcel of what's happening across the entire country. Listen.
The whole goal of Obamacare was to provide care for people who didn't have it. But the narrow networks are going to create a situation where those who need care the most may not be able to get it because their doctor doesn't participate, because they can't find a hospital that provides the service. So the end result will be people not getting care they need.
And the bottom line here is that most people will not find out that their doctor is not in their network, Megan, until they actually need to use that doctor. Megan.
All right, Trace, thank you. Well, when the reports of problems with the exchange plans first came up, we asked for emails, tweets, or personal experiences on our Facebook page, and we're still collecting them. If you follow me on Twitter, it's at Megyn Kelly, and on Facebook, it is facebook.com/The Kelly File. We have heard a lot of stories, like the story of the Peace family. They live in Lincoln, Nebraska. Mom and dad are self-employed, and they signed up for a platinum-level family plan on the federal exchange. Once they confirmed that they were in fact covered, they canceled their old insurance and everything was fine, they thought, until their son tore a ligament and needed medical attention. Well, when the pharmacist ran the insurance, the guy said mom and dad were covered, but the kids, well, they were not. And things got even more complex from there. Samantha Peace is with us now with her story. Samantha, what a nightmare. So you are one of the people who believed that you were covered, only to find out that you, or to be more specific, your children were not. The pharmacist says what to you? Ma'am, sorry, there's no record of any coverage for you?
Yes, that's exactly what they said. And I was extremely shocked. And I've spent the past 3 weeks talking to senators and congressmen. The White House has contacted me, Health and Human Services, and no one seems to be able to figure out a way to get my children back on the plan.
How do you, I'm just curious logistically, because the healthcare.gov thing has been such a mess for so many people. When you find out that they've only insured half your family and none of your children, who do you call? Like, how do you start that process?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I started off with calling healthcare.gov, and then I called Senator Fortenberry's office, or Congressman Fortenberry's office. I called, emailed the White House. I tried to reach out to any representative that could help me, and Marie Woodhead at Fortenberry's office has helped me try and find people that can help me, and steered me to the state insurance department and eventually to Health and Human Services. And they want to push everyone onto Medicaid, all these children onto Medicaid, and I just refuse to go on Medicaid, my children to go on Medicaid.
So HHS's response is just put your children on Medicaid, and for you that's not an acceptable option. Why?
Not at all. I don't want to be on public assistance, and actually almost every person at every corner has asked me to be on Medicaid just to have my children insured, and I said absolutely not. I signed up for a platinum plan, and I will have them insured under that. I did have to go out and get another private insurance plan, so I am paying 2 premiums right now.
This is just flabbergasting, Samantha. Your take now, here we are, after this botched rollout. You're somebody who tried to comply, get the platinum plan, and after having gone through all of this, when people ask you what you think about Obamacare and healthcare.gov, what do you say?
Well, healthcare.gov is a complete nightmare. I have probably spent 20 hours talking to them on the phone or on with their chat, and everybody knows a different thing, but nobody understood my case or knew what was going on, and nobody can help me. I mean, I talked to someone representing the White House, senators, congressmen, and nobody knows the answer. It's because it's a problem with the law, and so my children still don't have health care through the platinum plan.
This is unbelievable. We're going to continue to follow your story, and I hope you stay in touch with us to let us know how this goes. This should not have to happen. You should not have to contact your senator and your congressman and the White House and the Health and Human Services Department in order to get health care coverage that you paid for your children.
I know.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yes, that's very true.
All the best to you. Can you believe
Thank you.
this? I mean, can you believe this, people? Can you believe this? Can you imagine having to go through that? That's outrageous. Send me your thoughts on Facebook.com/The Kelly File and on Twitter @Megyn Kelly. Unbelievable. And then, of course, there are the ongoing security worries with healthcare.gov. We'll take a look at those. Plus,
We're about a month behind of where we anticipated we wanted to be.
A look at the White House in damage control mode and what this means for the 2014 midterms. And a marketing blitz. First keg stands and pajama boy, now talking pets. Who's responsible for all this, and what is it costing us?
And you taught us to roll, to catch and sit. That takes a lot of work, so you better stay fit. So sign up today, enroll. Enroll today, 'cause we love you and we need you.
oh my God, it's come to that. Talking pets are now the latest Obamacare brand representatives. That's real. But they are just one part of what has become a long-running series of, shall we call them, unique advertising attempts. Fitness fanatic Richard Simmons lent a hand and some horrifying dance moves to help out California's exchange. And by the way, this was said to cost in excess of $1 million. And then there's the new social media campaign using so-called mom jeans to break through to young adults and their parents. Or this message from the wildly mocked character who came to be known as Pajama Boy. He was out to get people talking healthcare over the holidays. He mostly got people talking flannel. But putting the jokes aside, while a lot of these specific ads were paid for by outside groups, Washington has budgeted $684 million for marketing, advertising, and awareness campaigns in just the first year. Ebony Williams is a political analyst and a trial attorney. Ebony, if the law is so grand, why must we spend so much to make people love it?
All right, Megan. I mean, these ads are both really right, in my opinion, and really wrong, right? So we know that there is a need to promote and advertise some specifics about this healthcare law. Now, what I have a problem with regarding the silliness of the ads.
Can I just stop you? Would you look at what is on the screen to your side? What is happening?
Sure. It's mocking. It's really ridiculous, right, Megan? We have to laugh at that because it's like dumbing down something that's actually very serious, right? And it's really smart to narrowly target women because, you know, we are great vessels at communicating some of these longer term important issues like health care to the rest of our family. But they're just going about it all wrong, Megan. Women are busy. We don't have time for these silly, gimmicky antics. This was just really, really wrong.
Like it's like the tortoise told me to do it and therefore I will do it. I mean, this is Pajama Boy didn't work on me. The mom jeans didn't work on me. Brosurance didn't work on me. But that dog, that little bulldog, yes.
And that was effective.
That's going to do it. I get that most people are not, the people who are not buying, according to the numbers,
right,
aren't buying, some of them, because they don't understand that the coverage will be subsidized and that, it may be less expensive than they think it's going to be. This is what the, studies suggest. And so this is trying to tell them, it's great. But you see this and it sort of makes a mockery of a law that's already taken a lot of incoming.
Exactly. And again, this is where the advertising misses the mark, Megan. If you're going to try to, promote this to millennials, right, 18s to 35s, we like things that are hot, hip, and cool. There's nothing hip or cool about a young, grown man, right, exactly, in flannels, or Richard Simmons doing some ridiculous stretching. It's missing the mark. And like you're saying, Megan, it's not pointing out what's important. You're not letting people know that there are subsidies available to, to many of you. You're not letting people know if you don't enroll by March 31st, you're going to have a real live financial penalty that's coming your way. So it's really not getting the more important things out there anyway.
Yeah,
it's really ineffective in that way.
With all due respect to Richard Simmons, who I think is fabulous, if you want to appeal to millennials, why are you going with Richard Simmons?
Right.
Why aren't you, try to get Beyonce to do a public service announcement? Go with, maybe not Bieber in today's day and age news cycle, but Richard appeals to maybe my generation and the one that precedes mine, but not so much.
I don't even know if it appeals to yours, Megan. Yeah, I was going to say I think he misses your boat as well for sure. But yeah, it's misguided in the way that it went about because we're past just generally promoting people talking about Obamacare. We're far past that. Too much money has been spent. We're too far in the game for that type of promotion.
Yeah.
We need specifics, and this is where there was really an opportunity to do that, and they missed the boat. And for personally, I was disappointed to see that.
Yeah, you look at our last guest, Samantha, and you think, is she going to be telling her friends to buy this because she sees the bulldog telling her to do it? Ebony, great to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
I'll see you soon. Well, the White House has had its hands full managing the challenges of the healthcare rollout, and so far, it looks like they have kept the insurance law from collapse. But has it permanently wounded the president's credibility? That's next. Plus, the fallout for the 2014 midterms. Wait until you see what is already happening in very tight races when we come back.
Tell Congressman Braley, Obamacare is hurting Iowa families. Tell Senator Shaheen, it's time to be honest. Obamacare doesn't work.
Tell Congressman Barber, Obamacare is hurting Arizona families. We deserve better.
Welcome back to our Kelly Files special. What is ailing Obamacare? We detailed earlier how some 6 million Americans lost their insurance last fall, kicked off of what the White House called substandard plans, or at least they were about to lose it. The problem was with each new cancellation report came new political heat for the administration, and the president finally stepped in and ordered those insurance companies to ignore the law requiring them to cancel those policies. Everyone was given a one-year grace period, or at least was encouraged to. And now we are hearing the White House may try to extend that through 2016. And this is just the latest in a series of healthcare twists and turns that have kept the White House press corps very busy this fall and winter. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry is at the White House for us. Ed?
Megan, good to see you. It's important to note what is driving all of this action and potentially more tweaks to the president's health care law. It's the election that's coming up, and there's a lot of pressure on Democrats, particularly in the Senate. If the president were to lose control of the Senate, then he would likely have neither chamber, and his final 2 years in office would be that much harder to implement this law and deal with other issues like immigration reform. Bottom line is, I spoke to an insurance industry official, a top one, who said that in private conversations, administrations officials are saying they're concerned that, when the president tweaked those plans late last year, it was only extending them. If you like your plan, you keep them for 1 year. And so what's going to happen is, come September, October of this year, right on the eve of the midterm elections, those plans will be running out again, and people will be getting insurance rate cards that will tell them what the premiums will be next year. And if they want to keep those plans, the rates could be going up. That is one reason that is sort of driving this potential change of extending these plans for 3 more years. What's interesting for context as well is we have to note that the president has a better story to tell. The website's being fixed. More people are being enrolled. But the more he tweaks this, the more questions there are about, if it's going so well, why do you keep changing it? And it's also impacting other issues like immigration reform. We heard Speaker John Boehner say, look, if you keep changing the health care law, we don't know what's in it, so we're not going to pass immigration reform, because then the president could keep tweaking that, Megan.
Ed, thank you.
Thank you.
As the administration has tried to stay ahead of all the problems with the healthcare rollout, we have seen the president's approval rating take a serious hit. What may be worse are the polls that show that people losing trust in this president continue to lose trust in this president. And here's the part of the reason why. Recently, when our own Bill O'Reilly pushed Mr. Obama on healthcare, here was the president's response.
We're about a month behind of where we anticipated we wanted to be. We've got over 6 million people who've signed up for Medicaid.
That is just not true. As we reported earlier, the Washington Post gave that Medicaid claim, which President Obama had been making prior to that interview with Bill, 3 Pinocchios, pointing out that a lot of those folks were just re-enrolling in the Medicaid plans they've had for years. It had nothing to do with Obamacare. Since that time, we heard that maybe 1 to 2 million of those at most are new signups, not 6 million. And then there was this.
So when I said you can keep your health care, I'm looking at folks who've got employer-based health care. I'm looking at folks who've got Medicare and Medicaid, and that accounts for the vast majority of Americans.
But the new CBO report says at least 6 million people will be losing their plans at work in the coming years. And even that number may be too low. Duke University just re-released a report suggesting 44% of U.S. firms, 44%, are considering cutting care to current workers. But the biggest problem for the president is this.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your doctor or health care provider, you can keep them. If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Nobody is talking about taking that away from you.
Well, that broken promise has continued to cost the White House politically in the last few months, and it's not just the White House. Joining me now, Chris Steyerwalt, our Fox News digital politics editor. Chris, good to see you. And so the big question now is how these Democrats, who not only ran on this law or voted for this law, but embraced it, are going to somehow distance themselves from it going into the 2014 midterms, when the latest polls show that 51.6% of the country disapproves of this law, just 38.3% of the country approves of it.
Well, now, Counselor, could I put a little finer point on it than that, which is it was not a broken promise. It was a lie. And it has been called that. And I think we can all conclusively say that if the president didn't know, at least everybody around him knew that that was not true as he was saying it. And as he was getting the law passed with that promise that was central to the law, and as he was running for re-election on the promise that you could trust him with the second term in office because he would make good on those promises. What we see now is essentially, and it's hard to tell when it happens day in and day out and day in and day out, but when you look over the longer arc of this, what you see is a president who was previously thought of as not being good at being president, but as a trustworthy, honorable person, is not seen that way anymore. And now both his policies and his character are in doubt. What that means is, as you rightly point out, how can you now trust Democrats, Obama Democrats or Clinton Democrats or any kind of Democrats, anybody who voted for this law, when they say, I know it hasn't been right, and I know we haven't done it right, but this time we're really going to make it okay.
Mm-hmm. And on everything, as Ed was pointing out, from healthcare to immigration, it's costing them in their sort of trust credibility with the public. Now, in the wake of that, what PolitiFact dubbed the lie of the year from the president on healthcare, he comes out and he keeps giving us the 6 million people enrolled in Medicaid number. You and I have been through this repeatedly. It's not true. It's just not true. And yet he can sit there and look right at Bill and say 6 million people have enrolled in Medicaid thanks to this law. That's not true. And on top of that, Chris, you've got, Kathleen Sebelius had come out early on and said success will be defined under this law if we get 7 million people signed up under healthcare.gov by the end of March. That's success, 7 million. It's not going to happen. And so now they're doing a reversal, the administration, pretending they never said that. Listen to these two butted sound bites.
I think success looks like at least 7 million people having signed up by the end of March 2014.
Well, that was never our target number. It came from the Congressional Budget Office, and it had become an accepted number. There's no magic to the 7 million.
That was never our number. What?
Well, and how about this? This is where we get into the alternate reality. So the alternate reality in Obama land now is that critics of the law, any criticism of the law, is not valid because it's not coming from Democrats, and that's a dangerous place for them and for the country.
Chris, good to see you.
You bet.
Well, aggressive political attack ads are hitting the airwaves, targeting vulnerable Democrats who supported Obamacare. We're going to have a fair and balanced debate next on whether that vote will cost them their jobs.
Mr. President, America needs jobs, not spin. No more lies, no more failure. Call President Obama and tell him his health law is not working, and we don't want to be trapped in it any longer.
Well, the problems with the Obamacare rollout have handed Republicans what looks like an early edge, at least in the 2014 midterms. While Election Day is still months away, we are already seeing aggressive ad campaigns targeting senators who echoed the president's now broken promises about keeping your plan and your doctor. Here's just a taste of that.
Call President Obama and tell him his health law is not working, and we don't want to be trapped in it any longer.
Tell Senator Shaheen it's time to be honest. Obamacare doesn't work.
Congressman Ron Barber supports Obamacare. Tell Congressman Barber, Obamacare is hurting Arizona families. We deserve better.
Kay Hagan, she just doesn't get it.
Tell Kay Hagan, Obamacare hurts North Carolina.
Tell Congressman Braley, Obamacare is hurting Iowa families, and we deserve better.
Joining me now, Tucker Carlson and Joe Trippi. Guys, good to see you. Joe, let me start with you as the Democrat on this, somebody who advises people, for a living and for political campaigns. Do you think the Democrats are worried about this?
Of course they are. Look, it's clear that this has hurt the president's credibility, hurt his numbers, dragged his favorability down, and that drags Democrats down. It's the same regardless of who's president. If you've got a president whose popularity is falling, whether it's about Obamacare or something else, or with Bush it was the war in Iraq, it doesn't matter. It drags the rest of the party down. And Obamacare, in particular, is going to be one of the factors that hurts Democrats. The problem still is it doesn't all happen in a vacuum. This won't be the only issue. Republicans have blown opportunities to win the Senate in the last two cycles when they legitimately should have taken the Senate because of their inter-party fights
and the nominees they
and so
choose.
all these things, all these things happen. This definitely is going to be one of the factors that is a challenge for a Democrat running for office this year in 2014. No doubt about it.
Not the nominees, but the candidates. Tucker, your thoughts now in the wake of these popularity numbers on Obamacare that I read with Stirewalt and these ads that we're seeing come out already on the likelihood of the Republicans taking control of the Senate.
Well, the Republicans could sure screw it up, but all things being equal, I think the Democrats are going to get creamed in the midterms. Midterms are not generally very ideological contests. They're referendums on the president in power, and just as Joe said, his numbers are foreboding, or bad sign, I would say, for the Democrats. The other problem is turnout, and the Democratic base is pretty tough to get out. That's why the Democrats spend so much money getting it out. But you have voters, especially in this election, I would predict, I think they're worried about this, who aren't going to come out to vote because Obama's not on the ballot. The people, by the way, who are hurt by Obamacare most are not people who voted for Obama in 2012, and a lot of them didn't vote for him in 2008. If you take a look at who is suffering most, people who lost their insurance, for example, disproportionately Republicans. You could say that was part of the plan at the beginning. I don't know, but that's the fact. So the mad people are voting against Obama.
Joe, we've seen the Democrats struggle in recent weeks to sort of find their message on Obamacare. The ones who voted for it seem to be sort of all over the board and trying to get away from the vote or explain the vote. Or here's just an example. Here's one, Jean Shaheen, who's talking about of New Hampshire, talking about, if you can keep your doctor or your plan. Well, here's her new take on it.
At least for people who are willing to pay more, that they have that option of going to their doctor and hospital no matter what their insurer does.
I mean, that can't be the new line, can it?
No, look, I think that what most Democrats are going to do is say, look, they're going to work to improve it and try to localize the race. They don't want this race to be national. It's in the Republicans' interest to make it a national referendum on Obama and Obamacare and a lot of issues they have with Obama. By the way, that usually works. I agree with Tucker. That's usually what drives a midterm election. It's usually people who have a grievance that vote, people who are happy or aren't paying. The voters that tend to turn out in presidential cycles is the only election they vote in. They don't have much interest in these midterm elections, and they tend to fall off. Those tend to be Democrats. So this is going to be a difficult environment for Democrats. But like I said, look, we've had 2 cycles. I remember last cycle, African Americans and Hispanics weren't as excited, and young people weren't as excited about Obama the second time around. They weren't going to turn out. They did. The Democratic Party has and the Obama.
That was before the bad stuff
campaign.
on Obamacare started to kick in, though. I mean, Tucker, they intentionally kept the bad stuff until after the presidential election, and now we're living with it.
They did, but they're going to try to do again in 16 what they did in 12, or rather in 14 what they did in 12, which is scare the heck out of the Democratic base. I mean, you're going to watch a concerted effort on the part of the White House and congressional Democrats to turn the conversation from Obamacare, the pressing issue of the day, to much more abstract issues like immigration. And the point will be, because it always is, they don't like you because of your ethnicity or skin color. They're just unreasonable. They're just haters. They just don't like you. Be afraid. Don't elect them, or you're in trouble.
Yeah.
They're going to get them out by fear.
And the women's rights, the war on women, and all that. I love the new line, though. You can keep your plan or your doctor just as long as you pay more.
As long as you're rich, you're good to go.
Just pay more. Come on, Joe, Tucker, great to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
Well, there's some shocking reports a few weeks ago about security concerns with a healthcare website. Up next, we'll see what's been done and why that matters. And if you have a story you'd like to share about your experience, go to facebook.com/The Kelly File and send us a note. And also follow me on Twitter @Megyn Kelly. Send me a tweet. Let me know what you're thinking #Kelly File. Well, federal officials confident in the security of the Obamacare website state there have been no successful security attacks on healthcare.gov. Our next guest says the statement should end with the word yet, pointing out the security problems that do continue to plague this website. Morgan Wright is a cybersecurity analyst and CEO of Crowdsourced Investigations. Morgan, I get, yet. Right. But listen, if you wanted to hack this website and sort of get in there and plant some malware or do something, why wouldn't they be doing it now? Why shouldn't we feel warmed by the thought that they haven't gotten to it yet?
Look, when that Senate report was released, that showed that all the major agencies have been hacked. Look, healthcare.gov is no different. For political reasons, they're trying to keep it tamped down because they want people enrolling. But look, the fact is, when I testified, and one of the people who testified with me, David Kennedy, he just testified again on January 19th and was able to download from the outside, without breaking in, over 70,000 records of personally information about enrollees in Obamacare.
What kinds of information?
So it is still not secure. Their names and basically basic information. But it didn't get into all the detailed information.
Social
but the point about it is
information?
none of this information. No, none of that.
Okay.
But the point about it is none of that information should have been available. Nobody should know, because it's healthcare, nobody should know who's enrolling and what their name is.
What is the risk of people's private medical data getting compromised? Because that, too, needed to go electronic thanks to Obamacare.
Look, there's a lot of, I'll tell you, one of the biggest issues will be fraud, Megan, as they try and build out the billing system and they try and build this out. Healthcare fraud is one of the big areas that the FBI investigates year after year. The other thing, too, is that there's also medical impersonation. People, if you get the right kind of information, you actually go in and get healthcare benefits, go to the emergency room, see a doctor using somebody else's information. But the issue is with healthcare information, that is the most personal kind of information. If the wrong information gets out, if your data gets conflated with somebody else's data, you may end up with some type of a fatal disease that you really don't have, and that's going to affect everything, and it will take you a long time to unwind that information out of your medical records.
On paper, you're going to wind up with the fatal disease, not in fact, on paper.
Right.
Okay.
On paper.
Before I let you go, the number one thing people can do to protect themselves.
Look, caveat emptor. You just need to beware of what you're dealing with. Make sure that if you're on your personal computer, you're behind a personal firewall, encrypted networks. Use strong passwords. Don't tell anybody your email address or the password that you use to enroll if you do that online. Look, there's some basic blocking and tackling, and don't give out information to strangers.
All right, Morgan. Thanks. We'll be right back.
Yo, so listen to me, a talking pug, you see. If you get health insurance, preventive care.
There are no words. But if you find some, go to facebook.com/The Kelly File and follow me on Twitter @Megyn Kelly. Let me know what you think.